From the heart of Central Florida, you are listening to the most electrifying show in media. A Neighbor's Choice. And I'm your host, your neighbor, David Gornoski. So glad to be with you once again live here across Central Florida. We're coming to you, FM and AM, ready to go, ready to learn, ready to unpack the news, to see our culture, to have a great time. That's what it's all about on A Neighbor's Choice. And that's why I'm glad that we could join together once again on this beautiful Friday afternoon. Hello, Tampa Bay and St. Petersburg, Sarasota, Lakeland, and Orlando, and all the places around Radioland. And hello to our friends online that join us every day on podcasts, wherever podcasts are sold, or Facebook and YouTube, or any of those little hinterlands. Those are scary little places over there. They delete people out of the ether when they question stupid ideas. Very bizarre little folks there. You know, for years, the people that ran YouTube and Facebook and Twitter, they were so libertarian, hands off, let everybody just do what they got to do. And I remember those days when they had the Google Ron Paul blimp. Remember, it would fly around the country, and it was like Google, and it was associated with this Wild West libertarian and Americana spirit, right? And populism, whatever you want to call. And then they just got, I guess, too big for their little britches, and they had to start saying, hey, that's enough, WHO, or you're done. You know, to the point where I've got a guy, Michael Lisanti, who's become a friend of mine. He's an American professor over in Salford University in Manchester, where he's the chair of translational medicine. And I've gotten to know him because of his groundbreaking work using a FDA-approved generic antibiotics like doxycycline and azithromycin. And what's interesting is, you know, I did this interview with the guy and put his name in the title, Michael Lisanti, and did a wonderful interview with him and my physicist friend, Dr. Yu, who has some fascinating insights about how atoms work and how that relates to our health. And so I did this interview, I guess, 4 weeks ago now? And you can't find it on YouTube. It's on YouTube, and because I put it in my column, which goes out to Newsmax and Daily Caller and Town Hall and different sites like that, it got traffic by the direct link that I gave it with my column. But if I didn't have that column, nobody would have seen it. And what's disturbing to me is this is a gentleman who's got 90,000 citations, according to Google Scholar. He's got over, I think, 362 peer-reviewed papers that he's published in academic journals. He's one of the most cited scholars, dead or alive, of any field, not just medicine, because this list of Google scholars that he's on includes people like Freud, Sigmund Freud, up in the top 5. So dead or alive scholars, he's one of the highest cited ones in the world. But even that, for some reason, when you type in Michael Lisanti on YouTube search engine, you can't find my video on YouTube. The only way you access it is if I direct link it to you, or you happen to find it through my column that's been syndicated at the different news sites I mentioned. And in the interview, Lisanti outlines the early clinical trials that he's done using antibiotics to treat cancer stem cells. This is fascinating, groundbreaking, liberating work potentially that could break through for millions and billions of poor people who are afflicted by this disease and related illnesses. And then he also showed in that interview with me that the same mechanism that these antibiotics use to help stave off cancer by killing the senescent cells, these are aging dysfunctional cells, that same mechanism could be used to help those people who have coronavirus who have fatal situations with them, because it's related to, again, the prevalence of senescent cells. If you have a lot of aging dysfunctional cells, those cells act as the host receptors for this virus to wreak havoc and create the deadly cytokine storm. So because I presented that information to you, for some reason, the humanitarians, the loving, wonderful people at YouTube land I guess they'll host it, so that's a nice benevolent thing, but they won't allow anybody to see it. That's the kind of social justice, that's the kind of care for their neighbor that these folks have been stuck on doing. That's the kind of energy, that's the kind of love of their neighbor that they seem to have. That a man can't do an interview with another this is not a guy in a basement, this is a guy with 90,000 citations, okay? According to Google, according to their own data. But even that's not enough for them to get their heads out of their tails and step away from trying to choke off the very lifeblood of a free and prosperous civilization, where you got millions of people afflicted by cancer and you got potentially millions of people or billions who are indirectly affected by the prevalence of a coronavirus with no drug that helps. And because we try to get that information out there, the humanitarians, the socially just people who run Google and YouTube, they said, no, I don't want to let that thing show up on my search engine. That's what we're dealing with, folks, and that's why we're going to continue to bypass those lemmings and grow a media presence through radio, through television, through video on demand. We are not going to let these little yesterday news, poor, sad folks disturb the free flow of information. That's not happening on my watch or on your watch, and I know that we're all part of a new conversation. So anyways, that's that. And we're going to continue to keep you updated on that story because clinical trials need to be done immediately in the United States using azithromycin, this Z-Pak, that's generic, it's FDA approved, and so is doxycycline. These are not dangerous drugs, contrary to stupid media misinformation that have tried to suggest you need to be on a heart monitor to use Z-Pak. Give me a break. I've seen that in the headlines. And I read that and I said, are you kidding me? This Z-Pak and doxycycline are some of the most prescribed drugs in America and the world. So these are drugs that you don't get on a heart monitor whenever you have a sore throat and they give you Z-Pak. Don't say, excuse me, you got to go into a hospital and have a heart monitor on to get Z-Pak. But now the media in their stupor, in their pitiful little stupor, want to tell you and scare the heck out of you and tell you that an ordinary antibiotic that you probably took 4 months ago for a sore throat, now it's so deadly when you try to use it for a new virus. Oh, it's so deadly that they're going to put you on a heart monitor. That's what some of the media folks have said. The stupidity, the stupid quackery of these fools. They're not going to stop progress. These Luddite-type folks are not going to stop progress. We're going to move ahead in freedom and love for our neighbor in a pursuit of the truth and knowledge wherever it leads. That's what it's about. That's what's going to happen. That's what's going to keep the folks around the world from having access to life-saving health breakthroughs. And that happens when you allow people to have a conversation. We're not talking about having two buddies in a garage talking about, hey, what can we do to help cancer? We're talking about people with 90,000 citations, and I can't even have an interview with them without these lemmings on YouTube, which at this point I see as a trash dump. I just use it as a trash dump, as like you have a storage. So you have extra, you have like trash cans, or you got extra storage or something, you need to hold on to something. That's what I see their platform for. I don't see it as any value or any concern for me, and I'll use it as long as the trash dump is available to me. But these fools are not going to get in the way of people having a conversation with a 90,000 citation scholar showing the effectiveness of an FDA-approved generic drug. Oh, is that the problem, YouTube? Are you scared if it's generic? Oh, maybe that's the issue. You scared because it's generic? Do you have too many, maybe, advertisers that like drugs that stay on patent? Is that? Oh, am I allowed to say that too? Are you scared? You want to take over radio waves too? Ooh. You want to take over TV? You want to take over newsletters and emails? Oh, I guess you go to Gmail. Yeah. Okay. Is that how Luddite you want to be? You're not going to win. You're going to lose. You're not going to keep people in misinformation because of your stupid ignorance. I don't know what your problem is, but the fools that run these platforms, you're not going to stand in the way of progress. Your Luddite, hatred, your troglodyte view of technology and progress and scientific discussion, it's not going to stop what you think it's going to stop. You're going to go the way of MySpace. No one cares about you and your little narrow view. Only WHO will have the say. What are you, a publisher? You think you're a publisher? Then you're going to act like a publisher. We're going to treat you like a publisher. I'm a publisher. Are you a publisher, YouTube, Google, whoever you are, all these different sites that are trying to act like they're so know-it-all? You're not going to get in the way of progress. This Luddite crap is going to stop. I'm David Gornoski. You're listening to A Neighbor's Choice. We'll be right back in just a moment. Live on A Neighbor's Choice.
A lawsuit is a devastating process for families. It can be an emotional roller coaster ride. There is a law firm in Tampa Bay that practices with this in mind. That law firm is Catania and Catania. We know and handle personal injury law for families with care. If it's an auto accident, medical malpractice, nursing home negligence, unsafe working conditions, or motorcycle accidents, the law firm of Catania and Catania will take care of the process worry-free from start to finish. Many victims don't even realize they can claim compensation for their loss until they talk to us. Catania and Catania only represent private individuals. We treat every case as if it's going to trial. Putting families first is more than just a slogan. It's our way of practicing law. It's our commitment to you. Remember, we don't get paid if you don't get paid. So go to CataniaCatania.com, award-winning, over 28 years, and family first. Catania Catania, personal injury, auto accident, and motorcycle accident attorneys.
Attorney spokeswoman. Hey, it's Bubba the Love Sponge. With all the coronavirus stuff going on, you've heard the CDC say wash your hands about a zillion times. You know, studies show that the average person touches their face 23 times an hour. Your nose, eyes, and mouth, that's called the T-zone. And the T-zone is the most important area to keep clean. And for over 12 years, there's this product called TheraWorks Protect. It's been used by millions of emergency room patients and medical clinics to support infection prevention. TheraWorks Protect is easy to use, and it's safe to apply several times a day on your hands and around your nose and eyes and mouth, better known again as the T-zone. Just apply a small amount into your hand and rub it in until it dries, and then apply another amount and rub it all over your T-zone. You know, finding hand sanitizer sometimes can be difficult, and now you can order TheraWorks Protect online. Just get it directly from them. Go to TZoneProtect.com and use the Bubba Kicker. When you use the Bubba /, you're going to get 20% off and free freight, and you're going to have it in a few days. Again, TZoneProtect.com /Bubba. Start protecting yourself and the ones that you love now.
United we stand. That's never been more important than it is today. Now you can show your commitment to our president and the nation with the limited edition Trump 2020 American Eagle Silver Dollars. Show your support with the limited edition American Silver Eagles, specially priced from government.com. Just call 1-800-571-6468. Hold the weight of democracy in your hand with new, perfect, uncirculated condition Silver Eagle coins. These historic coins, signed into law by Reagan, have been America's money since 1986. To secure your new limited edition Trump 2020 American Eagle Silver Dollar coins, call 1-800-571-6468. Call now and we'll give you a free Trump 2020 Patriots Pack, including a Declaration of Independence commemorative and 5 Lincoln cents when you order. Call now to secure your silver dollar coins, plus get your free Trump 2020 Patriots Pack, valued at over $10, free with every order. 1-800-571-6468. That's 1-800-571-6468.
Welcome back to A Neighbor's Choice. Hope you're having a great day. I'm in Florida. They've trying to reopen, I guess, a little bit, being very cautious, very political and lawyery, as always, when you go to government to take care of problems. But sorry if you're a barber, you're not allowed to cut hair. You're going to have, I guess, kind of like a secret underground hair cutting thing. This is going to be like Prohibition days where knock on the door, I hear a buzzer, I hear hair clips. Is someone getting a fade down in that basement? That's what the kind of stupidity is from these folks that are just owned by fear. And that's okay. We have to have sensitivity. We have to have love for our neighbor. And we're going to make mistakes, but we got to call it like it is. So joining me now is someone that is we were talking about YouTube. I guess he's a kind of a YouTube channel on his channel is called the Surfing Violinist. Ford Seeuws, how you doing?
Hey, good. Honored to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, I'm glad you could join us today, Ford. And yeah, I know maybe it's a little awkward for you. You're someone that's built a great platform on YouTube, but I'm amazed at the tone and the attitude of these folks that you can't even have a scientific discussion without them trying to monkey around with it.
Yeah, YouTube, a couple years ago, there was an issue, they called it adpocalypse, where they started pulling ads off of all kinds of channels for profanity, and it was very arbitrary. You didn't really know why you were getting your ads pulled off, and within the course of a month, they changed one policy, and people whose basically bread and butter was through ad revenue, through YouTube ads, just went away. And so that, you saw a lot of people going over to Patreon, and until there was a Patreon purge after that. And it was just, it was overnight, it was arbitrary, and it didn't seem to scale properly because there were other people who were breaking the rules, but they seemed to be like teachers' pets, big channels, corporate channels, and they could get away with it. You could have Jimmy Kimmel saying stuff that was fine, commenting on something political and still getting his ad revenue, but some, smaller YouTube channel, and some of these weren't small. I mean, we're talking, multiple million subscriber channels, and they just got their ads pulled. And then it seemed to, a lot of these people self-censored, and it got better. But I've noticed personally, just some weird things where a video, kind of like you said, just seems to be almost shadow banned, where it's not, you're not getting any, and this is conjecture on my part. I don't really know, but it seems to just not get views while another video will. And they didn't tell you that they pulled any ads on it or anything, but it's just, there's no numbers there at all. And they're like, well, last week it got 300 views. This week it got 50. And it just seems to be an odd platform. It used to be the algorithm, the tech did the work on Google and YouTube. And then, like you said, they became editors. They became publishers. They started gatekeeping the information, picking teachers' pets, and not being above board how the process went. So you couldn't figure out. You used to see those videos, top 10 tips for SEO, search engine optimization. Those things just quit working at a certain point because there was this back room, the Wizard of Oz sort of scenario. Who's behind the curtain and how do we appease him? And you don't know. It's just this sort of Greek god capriciousness, and how do you appeal to them? You don't know.
And yet you were able to build a sizable subscriber list for most people's standards, pretty significant. And I guess were you there, you built that probably during the golden age when they were a little bit more transparent and fair, right?
Yeah, so I started this particular channel. I don't know, I'm probably in more than double digits YouTube channels, mostly fly-by-night ideas. But this one I started in 2009 or 2010. And we went over to India for 5 years, me and my family, and that's a whole other story. But basically, that's where my channel took off. And we try to do like a reality show and try to make it good, like mini documentary sort of thing, showing Western is what Indian culture was like. It'd show a different side of India, definitely inspired by Anthony Bourdain sort of mindset, the way that he presented stuff, and especially at the time, no reservations. And so I was trying to do that kind of thing, and ironically, we ended up getting almost only Indian viewers. Yeah. So we had a very friendly and helpful fan base of Indian viewers. There were some big YouTube channels there that kind of pulled me along as well. I got to do some collabs with them, and had great experiences with all those YouTube channels, great experiences with all the local talent. But I think I said some things that made some people mad. And again, this is kind of conjecture. I don't really know what happened. But, I mean, I was doing, like, presentations and involved in some things at the Google offices outside of Delhi. and even did like a intro for one of the YouTube fan fests down in Mumbai. And then all of a sudden it was just like someone turned off the water. It's like I don't know what I said or what I did, but I just got no feedback. I was not invited back the next year. And so I'm not really sure, again, it's just this kind of arbitrary, you don't know what you did wrong, they won't tell you. And YouTube has been, a lot of these tech companies have been notorious for having these people that are just career, you don't understand what they are. They're ostensibly a tech company, but then they have these army of kids out of college who I don't know, and I don't know what they do. I really just don't know what they do sitting at these computers. And when they show you like some project they're working on, like for back-end communication for YouTubers and stuff like that, you're like, this app does not work. This is useless. Nobody uses it. So I don't, and trying to get, if you have a partner manager or stuff like that, it's just notorious. You'll even hear PewDiePie, a number one YouTuber on earth, to this day still has a hard time getting in contact with people. It's just, it's a tech company with all these employees, but I don't really know what they're doing.
Right.
So, and anyway, so I kind of hit the wall sometime around 2015, and it's just been, I plateaued at about 50,000 subscribers, and I've never gotten past that. So, I mean, a lot of that's my fault. I've changed I'm very ADD. I've gone like in 80,000 directions. And most of my Indian viewers, when I came back to America, they were like, well, this isn't what we signed up for.
Right.
So, again, I don't blame them, but there's just something odd about the whole way that it is run. And it seems like you're playing peekaboo with an arbiter that's changing the rules all the time.
Now, on the other hand, it seems like, and I'm not as, familiar with this world of podcasting that's emerging. I'm on there, but it seems like the world of podcasting and the platforms that people get podcasts from, I mean, I don't know, maybe Apple, I know they dominate a lot of it, so maybe they're playing around too the same way. But it seems like it's a little bit more of a fair platform. Is that the case in the world of podcasting? I would
agree 100%. Apple, back in the day, I remember there being some controversy with one of these Silicon Valley guys was kind of going in the back and forth when Steve Jobs was still alive about how the App Store wouldn't allow porn apps to be on the App Store. And, the one guy was saying, the tech guy was like, this is a violation of the free market, free speech. And, why do you have to have this overt draconian way of enforcing this? And Steve Jobs, I think he just had the foresight, it's his company. He drew the line somewhere. And for him, the line was he didn't want the App Store to be more bloated with bloat than it already is. I mean, you find so many junk apps that don't actually do anything, and so that was his reason. And so you would think that, with that sort of background, Jobs would have left like this legacy of being a little more policing on the podcast side, but I found it to be much more open, not censoring speech, not policing that to some absurd degree. It is much more open, and there are other avenues that you can use as well. But a lot of people, I mean, myself included, use Apple Podcasts to reach probably the most audience, and just haven't had that kind of trouble. So yeah, I've had a better experience with them.
So since we're on the topic, what do you think the future of media distribution looks like? I mean, this is an important issue, especially as this event that's been happening in the news lately has shown that, having reliable platforms to have communication, I mean, that's the foundation of civilization, that humans can come together and have an honest conversation without trickery, without artificially, pushing the scale one way or another. So you're distorting reality, you're distorting the range of discussion, you're distorting the range of options that people can pursue. This kind of nonsense. I mean, we've had to deal with this our whole history of humans, right? It used to be it was the scribal class that would write down the myths, or it was the oral tradition of the elders would tell the story of the myth, and then you get decentralization of media, but then it consolidates again with few TV networks, in a few newspapers, and then it decentralizes, and then it consolidates. So it's like there's this battle that's going through in history of who's got the mic and who's got the conch, if we're thinking of Lord of the Flies. Who's got the conch is the one that can speak.
Exactly.
So that's where we're at today, isn't it?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. When you're saying earlier that, it's ironic that Google, their subsidiary YouTube, that Facebook, that Instagram, that sometimes even Twitter, although I would say at this point Twitter is a bit better than the rest. Mm-hmm. There's some level of freedom of speech, and there's certain things that they will shut down and they'll ban your account, but you can come back on. But all of these big tech companies, the irony is they seem to be the ones that are Luddites, and they want us to go back to this gatekeeper model where they're not functioning as tech companies anymore. They're functioning as the New York Times. They're functioning as William Randolph Hearst. They're functioning as Citizen Kane, level on their own terms. They're leveraging this giant, awesome power just for their own. Like you said, it's just always covering themselves with a lawyer's mindset. They're looking at things with the insurance company actuarial tables approach to everything, and rather than thinking of the possibility. If you've heard like Eric Weinstein and Peter Thiel talk and Weinstein's podcast, The Portal, it's great because they both are talking about the stagnation. We should have all this great technological advance, but we seem to be stilted, and we're just not moving forward. And these tech companies are the ones that seem to hold us back. And like you said, I think one of the things that we have to get past is people's assumption that Facebook, Google, and Twitter are like never going away. Like you said, MySpace isn't here anymore, but we just tend to assume that this is the way that it is and it will always be thus. That, these FANG companies, that's it. It's over. They've established world domination. And the thing, overnight something can change. In the blink of an eye, a new tech can come along, or people can just exit en masse and go back to Blogger. I don't understand why we have this mentality that you have to only be published on like one of 3 blogs, or no one's gonna reach you, or you're not gonna be able to reach anyone else. So yeah, there's this weird sort of, they've almost like brainwashed us into this passive complicity where we just have to post to YouTube. There is nothing else.
Well, it's interesting. You mentioned Peter Thiel. I mean, he invested in Facebook based on, he said, the work of René Girard, who is an anthropologist I like as well. And Girard is keen to point out that human beings are mimetic, that they imitate what others around them desire. And so we're all kind of transfixed by the power of the network effect that, well, everybody's on there. If I go to we've seen there's certain talents that they get blocked from all the major platforms. They try to create their alternative platforms, and they just basically evaporate from your presence. And so I think people who want to have a conversation are mimetically drawn into the snare for a lot of reasons. And keeping up with the Joneses, we're all trying to do it in some way and some time. So on the other side, we're going to take a quick break because we don't do YouTube monetization here. We're going to get into that. So we're going to take a quick break on radio. But when we continue, we're going to ask our guest, the Surfing Violinist, who's on YouTube. We're going to ask him some lessons that he learned from being in India that maybe we can learn from today. We'll continue live on A Neighbor's Choice in just a moment.
A lawsuit is a devastating process for families. It can be an emotional roller coaster ride. There is a law firm in Tampa Bay that practices with this in mind. That law firm is Catania & Catania. We know and handle personal injury law for families with care. If it's an auto accident, medical malpractice, nursing home negligence, unsafe working conditions, or motorcycle accidents, the law firm of Catania & Catania will take care of the process worry-free from start to finish. Many victims don't even realize they can claim compensation for their loss until they talk to us. Catania & Catania only represent private individuals. We treat every case as if it's going to trial. Putting families first is more than just a slogan. It's our way of practicing law. It's our commitment to you. Remember, we don't get paid if you don't get paid. So go to CataniaCatania.com, award-winning, over 28 years, and family first. Catania, personal injury, auto accident, and motorcycle accident attorneys.
Coronavirus is threatening the entire world. Could you protect you and your family? Even getting tested can cost you up to $3,200 out of pocket. Would you be able to afford that for you and your family? Well, free Obamacare will cover and protect today. New insurance may cost you nothing. Zero premium plans are available. If you've lost your job, you must call 877-652-0244 or text VIRUS to 919191 or log on to freeobamacare.com. Call us today. We'll get you enrolled, get you qualified coverage to protect you from not only this outbreak, but day in and day out sickness and illness. Our plans cover visits, testing, emergency and urgently needed care, medications, and more. Now more than ever, you need to act now and call now. No long lines, and we can get you coverage today. That's 877-652-0244 or text VIRUS to 919191. That's 877-652-0244.
Hello, this is David Gornoski here. You're listening to A Neighbor's Choice. It's Friday. Hope you've had a productive week despite all the incoming trying to disrupt that. The new normal. Have you heard that? The new normal. They hear this little minion sound. The new normal. They keep saying this on the media. Don't let them say those things to you. They don't define normal. No one defines normal, okay? You don't get to define, oh, this is the new normal. You must always wear a mask. And every time you go to eat, how are you going to eat with a mask on? The geniuses didn't tell you about that, did they? So we're here now with Ford Seeuws, who is known as the Surfing Violinist. You can find him on YouTube. Subscribe there to see a lot of his journeys and adventures in India. For those who love geography and love traveling and love getting a neighborly perspective of places far away, this is a great channel to look at. And of course, he does a lot of other content too that in his newer, more recent times has focused on a variety of topics, including David Lynch, the filmmaker, which I'm going to have to ask you about, Ford, here in a little bit. Okay. I'm practically looking like I'm in the Black Lodge right now if you're watching me on video, but so you can tell I like David Lynch. But I wanted to get into kind of some lessons that you learned from living in India, good, bad, whatever, just things that you think about that maybe those of us, here in America and so forth can learn from.
So it's hard to ever sum India up. I went over my first trip in 2002, and I was attending evangelical Christian college at the time, and I went over with a very naive, wide-eyed, save the world sort of mindset. And that 7 weeks that I was there in 2002, I was in Varanasi, which is famed for its holy pilgrimage for a lot of Hindus. And I made a video there. It was one of the first videos I ever made. A good friend helped me edit it when I came back because I didn't know how to edit anything. And I think the first line of it was the first line of pretty much every documentary that's ever talked about India is India, land of contrast. That's what everyone always says about India. And it, for an outsider, it just seems you can't encompass it all. I've had a friend explain Hinduism like a open source religion. I've heard other people describe it like a parliament of religions. And I think both of those are actually pretty good descriptions. And what India did for me that first summer was take me down a peg or two from my own cultural pride, where I was the way I was seeing the world through my evangelical Christian perspective. I didn't realize how culturally conditioned it was and how much I was viewing everything, including my own life, through the lens of a Platonic dualism. I don't think Nietzsche said something about that really Christianity has been held hostage by Plato. And it wasn't until India that I really realized, once I dealt with Hindu philosophy, which is just, it's just like you feel like you're upside down in another universe, because it is just a different way of thinking. And I came back very changed that summer, but didn't know what to do with it. And when we came back, I went back to India 2 more times before settling there in 2011. And I came back with much more humility. And I think over time, my mode of operation was basically to say, look, I'm sorry for the things that white dudes did in the name of Jesus in the past. I'm still a practicing Christian, but I think it wasn't handled well. If you look at the British East India Company, there's a lot of things that just weren't handled well, and that's being generous. And then in 2011, my entire perspective on being a religious person swimming in a culture, it just changed, and I started seeing things from a totally different perspective. Things like, for instance, the 3 wise men from the East. These are basically astrologers. They're the ones that find Jesus first, and not many Western Christians will really hang a lantern on that, but those people sound a lot like Zoroastrians or Hindus. And when you start meeting Hindus that still practice astrology to this day in a different way than a lot of Westerners would, there's so often something is like entered into our way of interpreting Christian faith in the West, where it's this sort of materialistic, pseudo-intellectual fear of superstition, all things that we can't explain, that aren't scientific or answered by prayer through Jesus must be demonic. And so you end up this very Manichaean way of looking at the world, this black and white, either or, again, Platonic dualism. And I think one of the reasons Hinduism still exists today is that it is a reminder of what we are. We were not born monotheists, like in terms of our white Western culture. We were born like Druids and Norse and Thor and Odin and all this sort of stuff. You get to see what some of our cultures were like by looking at India now. And there's a tendency for the Platonic dualist post-Christian just to forget about all of that, throw all the baby out with the bathwater, and just become this Platonic, like, sort of Roman Jewish, like, materialist. That's what I feel like about Christianity in its current form. So, anyway, all that to say, India started making me question my perceptions of Jesus again, and then I stumbled upon George MacDonald. Ironically, when I was in India, I read my first George MacDonald book there. It was at a bookstore in India, and started reading it to my daughter. And George MacDonald was a Scottish lay preacher who was pretty much excommunicated from his church because he's too weird. And I just love George MacDonald. For me, was just he kind of further pulled me out of this Manichaean viewpoint that a lot of Christians have, which is just very reductionist, and it's basically us or them. It's xenophobic. So India has that effect on people. You can read about Steve Jobs, you can read about the Beatles, all these people who've gone over there and come back different. I don't worship India, and I have not become a Hindu, but I don't think you can just throw the 7,000 years of culture and religion and society down the drain with this hand wave of Plato and Paul. That's basically where I am, I guess, religiously, coming back from that.
What do you think about the hierarchies that they have there that are vestiges of that older form of mediating, order in a society?
So that's true. I was actually reading, I think Rothbard, who's doing his history of economic thought prior to Adam Smith, and he was pointing out the hierarchies in Greek culture at the time. And there's a lot of parallel between the hierarchies of old in the West and the hierarchies in the East. In Hinduism, you have the Brahmins at the top, the Kshatriyas, the Vaishya, and the Shudras, and the untouchables. And so there's 4 to 5, and all those are subdivided, from the top with the Brahmin, the priestly caste. But if you look at the way Jewish society was structured, Greek society was structured, I'm not altogether convinced that we have gotten out of that either in Western culture. Right. Like you said, that there is this scribal class. There's a great YouTube account, Alice Mazzy. She wrote a phenomenal article about coders being the new priestly class, and they were inheriting this priestly class role from the journalists, who basically kind of were like our scribes, the ones that were telling us what to think and what to believe. And I am not altogether convinced that we post-Christian, post-Plato have gotten out of this stuff. We just tricked ourselves and renamed everything. It's like all these people talking about late capital and blaming everything on capital. It's like we never lived in a capitalist society. British East India Company got a monopoly on IP before 200 years before Marx even came up with the idea of overthrowing private property. So before capitalism could even get a shake, you had this virus, this cancer inside of industrialism, which was intellectual property rights. That's the real enemy, is IP law, the way that that these giant corporations leverage it with regulatory capture. I mean, if Marx wanted to hang a lantern was really wrong, he should have pointed out that, but he was not smart enough to.
Well, that's what's interesting about what I mentioned earlier in the beginning about the FDA generics. There's that bias towards IP that's holding humanity back. Yeah. So you're right. We're talking with the surfing violinist, also known as Ford Seeuws. You can find him on YouTube, and we'll be right back in just a moment.
A lawsuit is a devastating process for families. It can be an emotional roller coaster ride. There is a law firm in Tampa Bay that practices with this in mind. That law firm is Catania & Catania. We know and handle personal injury law for families with care. If it's an auto accident, medical malpractice, nursing home negligence, unsafe working conditions, or motorcycle accidents, the law firm of Catania & Catania will take care of the process worry-free from start to finish. Many victims don't even realize they can claim compensation for their loss until they talk to us. Catania & Catania only represent private individuals. We treat every case as if it's going to trial. Putting families first is more than just a slogan. It's our way of practicing law. It's our commitment to you. Remember, we don't get paid if you don't get paid. So go to CataniaCatania.com, award-winning, over 28 years, and family first. Catania & Catania, personal injury, auto accident, and motorcycle accident attorneys.
Every time I feel my baby kick, I sing. You don't understand. I never sing. I'm not good at singing. I'm the only person I know who's been booed off a karaoke stage. But that was before I was pregnant. Today, I'm a singer. It's a lullaby mostly. It just came out one day. I didn't even know I knew any lullabies. But there I am singing. Don't even know I'm doing it. I guess I'm singing because I'm in love. I'm singing because I don't know who I'm in love with. I'm singing because this precious little baby I'm carrying is a fragile little miracle, and everything has to go right with me to make sure everything is right with her. I have a captive audience of one, and every day she gets a concert that comes from my heart. She doesn't boo me. She never will.
We know how it feels. We're the March of Dimes, and we're here to help moms have healthier babies. Find out how we can help you at marchofdimesbaby.org.
My son, Chris, was almost 18.
My sister was 4.
My brother, Jeff, was 16.
Evan was in college.
Chris was in high school.
My daughter, Lauren, was in preschool.
It happened in March.
In October.
I got it in July.
Meningococcal disease. It can happen to anyone, anywhere, anytime, and the effects can be devastating.
You can almost feel it racing through your body, destroying it.
Lauren lost a hand, her feet, and nearly her life.
It killed my brother in 18 hours.
Vaccination is the best protection. Today, health officials recommend immunization for children ages 11 through 18.
This infection moves quickly. Parents need to move quicker. Immunization can save your child's life.
To learn more about preventing meningitis, visit our website at nmaus.org or call 1-866-366-3662. A public service message from the National Meningitis Association.
Neighbor's Choice is live. I'm David Gornoski. Happy to be with you here in our neighborhood in Central Florida. And we're talking with the Surfing Violinist, someone who is a world traveler and someone who's got a lot of ideas and interesting insights in philosophy and culture, politics and economics. He's Ford Seeuws. And I wanted to ask you real quick, kind of changing gears for a second. You know, I see all these weird stories, these people, you know, sending the police to get people to stop having their daughter play in the other house, and trying to get them on a list and this creepy stuff like that. And I don't know, is there anything we can learn from the bizarre world of David Lynch movies that you can think about? Because I think about the way he takes little America, he takes small town America, or whatever, and he just shows that there's a lot of darkness hidden underneath. And when I see this pandemic, it seems like some of that creepy underbelly of things that we need to resolve as a society, kind of, it's starting to show itself a little more, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I was actually just outside today. There was something dead that was under our trailer, so we're trying to refurb this trailer, and to add insult to injury, we started smelling something, I don't know, 3 or 4 days ago, and so I was postponing it as long as possible. I was taking pictures of bugs in the yard, and I kind of like reconnecting with an old childhood hobby of wanting to be an entomologist, and so I was just taking pictures of stuff, and I found a bee. There was a dead carpenter bee next to this palm tree, and it made me think of Blue Velvet, actually, David Lynch's film, which I discussed last week on the Perfect National podcast. Jack kind of introduced me to some of these films, Blue Velvet and Wild at Heart, and both of those films just had I had a very emotional response to them because David Lynch is a weird dude. I mean, he was basically like into he is basically into transcendental meditation, some of this Eastern sort of stuff, but he's full Americana. When you watch his movies, he's not ironically portraying his love of America. Like, he really isn't. He really does love this stuff, and it shows through. But in a movie like Blue Velvet, there's this nefarious underside, like you said, the underbelly that makes an old film noir seem pale or tame in comparison. You know, going back and watch something like Maltese Falcon or The Big Sleep, it's just not even in the same universe. It's, closer in tone probably to Chinatown. But there's still something that it scratches at a place where none of those could really get, because it's going into some deep, dark, almost Dante's Inferno sort of level. Mm-hmm. And the end of that movie, especially Blue Velvet, it reminded me of my little escapade this morning, having to go up underneath my trailer, and I found there was a dead raccoon under there. He was what's causing the stench, and so I suited up, and even though I've been talking bad about masks, I definitely wore a mask for that little endeavor, and had to get him out of there. And it's just a reminder that we've forgotten that death is just a part of life. And that comes up in Blue Velvet quite a bit. There's a lot of death, and there's a lot of nastiness. But Laura Dern has this little fanciful thing. There's a church music in the background. She's like, the future is going to be robin. I had this dream about robins, and the robins were coming out of the heavens, and it's just beautiful. It's just this virginal, wonderful, soothing picture. And then finally at the end, when the dust has settled, and you're not really sure how real this is, but the dust has settled, everything seemed to work out, and there's this robin that lands on the windowsill, and it's got this beetle in its mouth, and beautiful thing, but there's death right there. And, you know, my daughter's adopted a stray cat, and this cat decapitated a lizard, you know, and left the lizard. So after I'd gotten the raccoon out, there's this lizard head sitting on my porch that I noticed this morning too. So I think that Lynch really has I'd read somewhere at I think it was Twin Peaks Season 3 review, someone had mentioned, I thought was fantastic, that Lynch really has different people have their themes or their tones, and Lynch's is the texture of dead skin, which seems morbid, but, you know, I think it's one of the things that Protestants, you know, this sort of plucky Western worldview where we forgot that Catholic understanding of the memento mori, you know, the remembering death. And you can do this without being morbid. And I think Lynch, like, threads that needle and reminds us that we are dust, and we're not going to get away from being dust by being cowards. You have to face it. You can't just let this thing rot under your house. You got to go get it. You know, you have to be brave. You have to be courageous. And we, you know, people in the past understood that. It was just a matter of course. It was a matter of fact. But with our technological advancement, we start to get soft, and we start to get complacent, and we start to just take it for granted that everything is just going to be safe and happy, and you're never going to get sick. It's like you get sick so you can get stronger and resist it the next time it comes around.
I think so much of the meanness that people do to each other is based on this deep-seated denial of death, that they're trying to, you know, like, if I can shove people around me down and elbow people and my neighbors and elbow other people and take their money or get them or make them suffer or make them feel isolated or shamed, somehow that will wiggle myself away from death faster, or just one more day or something, you know?
Agreed. You know, and like you were asking me earlier about, like, the caste system in India, and it's like, it's easy for an outsider to notice how India has traditionally, and this has changed, but India has traditionally been guilty of treating the untouchables. But I have witnessed, since I came back from India, this, you know, like Hillary calling Middle America deplorables. You know, like I've witnessed this sort of same mentality towards guys I work with on the docks, where it's just people are just treated like trash.
I think that was also seen.
This upturned nose.
I think that was also seen in this fascination with Tiger King, mocking a lot of the people depicted in there, Middle America, with missing teeth and meth and all kinds of things. And
absolutely,
it was right around the pandemic. It was like a perfect scapegoat. Everybody could laugh at their missing teeth. And I thought, yeah, I think we see that untouchable class there. Hey, Ford, a pleasure having you. I want everybody to go to the Surfing Violinist on YouTube, and we'll keep talking to you. It's a lot of pleasure.
All right, thank you so much.
We'll continue in just a moment on A Neighbor's Choice. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast and our YouTube and all that stuff. As long as we're on there, we'll have a great time joining you each day. Just remember, fear can be overcome with perfect love. I'm David Gornoski. Godspeed.